9 chapters of First Kings before the passage that is today's first reading, the story of Naboth's vineyard, the chaos began that would bring down Israel's monarchy. The disorder started in about 930 BCE with the schism between the southern kingdom of Judah and the northern kingdom of Israel. From the viewpoint of the author of First Kings, there were only 3 righteous kings, and they're all of the south: David, Solomon, and Asa. The 41-year reign of Asa over Judah overlaps with those of Jeroboam, the first king of the north after the schism, and 6 more kings of Israel, 2 of whom ruled for 2 years or less. First Kings describes each of these northern monarchs as having done all the evil and worse of their predecessors back to Jeroboam. The 2 books of Kings and the preceding 2 books of Samuel, which together comprise the biblical history of monarchical Israel, are clearly written from a Judahite perspective. The southern kings were not as good, nor were the northern kings as bad as they are made to appear. Nevertheless, significant truth is found in these pro-Judahite and pro-Davidic accounts. Foremost of these truths is the danger of falling to false gods. That alarm is sounded even before the first king is anointed. A danger existed in the Israelites' plea to Samuel to appoint for them a king as the other nations have. Ahab, the king featured in today's first reading, was like his northern predecessors in his worship of foreign idols. He'd even sealed his dependence on those gods in his marriage to Jezebel. Such worship of foreign deities was the chief evil of the northern kings that the prophets like Elijah were sent to suppress. Moreover, Ahab was given a long reign of 22 years, in which the Lord gave him a chance to set right the evils of his predecessors. But he did the opposite, and worse. Ahab did evil under the guise of keeping religious and social tradition. Ahab's attempt to secure Naboth's vineyard was not wrong in and of itself. Naboth would have been expected by that tradition to give his excess land to his neighbor or to the poor and landless. He refused to do so, which makes me question, whenever I read this story, why no prophet is said to have criticized Naboth's lack of charity. Ahab, though, had no right to the land, or to have Jezebel force Naboth to part with his vineyard. On the surface, the actions of Ahab and of Jezebel do not seem wicked. Still, the same ancient tradition in which 2 witnesses are sent to Naboth to bring a capital charge against him was also long-standing. Here again, though, we see the abuse of the vulnerable by those who have power over them. The treatment of Naboth by a king who has fallen for the gods of greed and affluence becomes a question of social justice, and a question of to whom we bear allegiance, to God, or to someone, or to something else. The account of Naboth's vineyard, and again today's gospel, in which Jesus warns his disciples against the unjust application of a religious law that was designed to mitigate retaliatory violence, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, we're told, reminds us that charity must govern our actions as Christians. That charity must take precedence even over actions that are merely right by legal or by religious tradition. Let us pray accordingly that our liturgy might strengthen us, that through the sacrament of the Eucharist we might act with justice and with charity in applying laws that are good in and of themselves to the even greater good of ourselves, of our neighbor, of the world in which we live, and of our relationship with our God.